Welcome back to Middle East Now. Saudi ambassador to the U.S., Rima Bandar Al Saud, spoke about the prospects of normalization with Israel. Take a listen.
You know, the kingdom has a policy, which is we believe in a two-state solution. We want to see a thriving Israel. We want to see a thriving Palestine. Vision 2030 talks about a unified, integrated, thriving Middle East. And last I checked, Israel was there.
Can you imagine normalizing relations with Israel while the Netanyahu government is taking such aggressive steps and taking more and more land for settlements from the Palestinians and making it impossible to have contiguous land to create a Palestinian state?
It's so terrible. It's so problematic. And I wish I had a say in it, but it's not anything I have a say in. So again, let's take the steps back to what we listened to earlier. If we just asked people the question of where are you coming from and why do you want to do this, we might get to a more stable, workable solution.
Okay, so let's break it down now. Batya Leventhal, I-24 News political correspondent, is here. What do you hear between the lines?
I think that's exactly it, is that there is almost these lines. We have to remember that whenever the conversation pops up into any kind of diplomatic circles regarding normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia is very careful not to mention Israel by name. It doesn't go as far as some of the more agnostic sort of countries that say the Zionist entity, but they'll say that they want peace with everybody or all partners in the region. They're very careful with not mentioning Israel as a state, as a name. The fact that you now have a US ambassador, or a Saudi ambassador to the US rather, putting forward a statement saying that not only do they want to look at possible normalization with Israel, but they want to go one step further, that in her eyes, they want integration. Meaning that with normalization, as she explained, you almost have the friendliness of agreements between each other, but we go on our separate ways. We're friendly, but we don't need to engage more than that. She's saying what she really wants is cooperation in the entire region, that a prosperous Middle East, and we've heard this countless times, not just from the Saudis, from the Americans, from Europe, everybody is on the same page, that a prosperous Middle East only comes with benefits, only comes with good economics, good politics. And so really, the fact that we're hearing this out in the open now and on US soil as well is very surprising and is definitely a step in the right direction. However, I think what's going to be interesting now is to see how that plays out, given the fact that there still seems to be things that are in the way, namely the Palestinian issue when it comes to ties between...
It's a big but.
It's a big balance, exactly. So there are these lines in between that we have to read in between the lines, because between Israel and Saudi Arabia, and obviously with all the partners mediating, whether it's the US, whether it's China, it almost seems like nothing is ever going to be said in a way that is clear and coherent. We're going to have to look at the meaning behind it.
Right. And now you're telling me there's another phone call between US foreign minister to Israeli one?
Absolutely. So Eli Cohen and Antony Blinken sort of having a conversation that seems to be ongoing and never ending, that they almost have each other on speed dial. But the important things we're bringing up two aspects. Obviously, Israel is incredibly concerned about the Iranian issue. The fact that the US has put back on the table the idea of even having an interim deal with Iran concerns Israel in the highest possible way. And so having these conversations consistently makes it very clear that Israel has this as a project, as a way of stopping Iran, and making clear to the US, as apart from what just happened now with Benjamin Netanyahu and his China visit, that the US will know up front if Israel needs to act on its own, because it doesn't stand by the policies that are going forward between the US and Iran. So that's the one thing. The other interesting thing is the Negev summit. We know that that was put on hold by both Morocco and the United States. Israel is now saying we would like to bring that back. Remember, and I'll remind our viewers, the whole reason that that was postponed is because of Benjamin Netanyahu's government's enlargement of the settlement bloc, enlargement of the settlement plans in the West Bank. And so they're now saying we want to return to that, not making any mention of going back on their word with regards to expanding the settlements, but saying that they'd like to expand on the number of countries that are involved in this peace initiative.
And all of that while Israel is now stepping into another wave of civil disobedience and demonstrations, and we'll see what's happening with that. Batya Leventhal, thank you very much for that.